says the real problem is in the distribution of food. And yes, that is a real problem. But if we're wasting so much food and elsewhere people are starving, why can't we just get the food to the people? What do we mean when we say that distribution of food is a problem? It takes energy, so it's expensive to move the food around, but that's usually captured in its price.
And also the people that need it don't have money to buy it.
Yes, and there's a vicious positive feedback loop, where if your country's poor, you can't get the development to grow your food, so you get hungry, and when you're hungry, you can't grow your economy, so you'll be poor. And if you're poor, you can't develop agriculture, so you'll be hungry. And if you're hungry,
Wait, you eat 25,000 tons of porcine a year?
oh, sweet. I don't. We Americans do?
Yeah, in the United States. It has all the countries.
Can I get some of that?
The amount of porcine that's slaughtered and eaten.
Never mind. No, we're talking about eating horses. We have one of them here. Okay. Look. Here's the problems we have with food distribution. This is going way slower than the other periods because we're having these amazing conversations. I wish we could continue. We have a number of problems. One problem that we have is we've delocalized the food supply. So if Daniel likes to eat wheat, he has no control over how Russia is using their water supply during a drought. And so he's just the victim of what happened in Russia because he, as a South African, depends on Russia's water policy. When you delocalize food supplies, to some degree, the distribution of food is more out of your hands. Like in the U.S., we grow a lot of our own food. So if Americans go hungry, they can be like, politicians, you work for me, can you please feed me? But, at least some of those Americans matter, so we're going to feed at least a few of them.
In theory. When we use food to make like forks and spoons, like that potatoes, isn't that just there's like plastic forks and spoons and knives that are made out of potatoes?
The disposable stuff? Yeah, I mean
isn't that food?
Yeah. So it's called problem shifting. Problem shifting. People are like, this fork isn't biodegradable, so I'm going to make a biodegradable fork, and now it's just, we don't have enough food, but whatever. Probably the net volume
that's like the one your card for gas money. You're like,
yeah, problem shifting. I hear you. But I think it's relatively minor for our global food supply.
I don't want to sound like a jerk, I'm going to sound like a jerk saying this. Isn't our huge growing population a huge problem? And hunger is one way that is limiting it. And so if we were to end world hunger, wouldn't that contribute to the growth of our population?
I mean, it's always the person that's well fed that makes this suggestion. The logic is obvious to all of us, but I think it's a pretty tough sell when you gotta look that kid in the eye and go, sorry bro, too many people on the boat.
and poor people let's let poor people die.
Like, some other day we should continue this conversation. I mean, I hear what you're saying. Like, in some vicious sense, if someone has to die, this is how people die. Not everybody will live forever. I hear you.
Because if we were to end world hunger, it would create more people, which would probably just start up the hunger.
Yeah. I mean, it's a brutal reality of life that if everybody's happy enough to be breeding, nobody will be happy enough. We'll talk about this in a separate unit, but not now. Delocalized food supply means you don't control the decisions that affect food distribution. Number two, there's this thing called the banana republic. a country that grows food for export, because we have an international food system, Daniel the farmer makes more money growing chocolate for wealthy Europeans than he does growing food for his neighborhood. But it makes sense for him and it makes sense for them, and the neighborhood will starve, and that's unfortunately logical in our cutthroat economy. There are ways to limit economic activity, but as you know, that is a philosophical approach to how we manage our transactions. Yeah.
So like on a related note, like the price of food can also be manipulated and like commodified, so people can buy and sell like futures for food, so it doesn't represent the actual like value of having that food.
And again, this is an issue with the delocalized, with an international food system. One of the big problems with the international food system is you bring in so many middlemen and brokers that you can't help but commodify food. And so you have inflated and arbitrary and explosively dynamic food prices. None of this is possible in a localized food system. Because I can't run, I'm not from this country. Okay, next. One of the big problems with food distribution is all those bullets and bombs. I have to admit first and up front that I'm a bleeding heart hippie, and we bleeding heart hippies always like to use this statistic, but remember, the deadliest thing about war is not the weapons. It is the unraveling of the social fabric. The cracks get bigger so more people fall through. Nobody wants to drive your truck to deliver rice if there's a bunch of IEDs on the road. Sorry, you're not getting rice. The deadliest thing about war is not the battle. It's the details that suffer. One of the biggest problems with the distribution of food is that conflict and warfare make it harder to move food around. Yeah, the diseases after World War II killed more than twice as many.
World War I, the Spanish flu was like a huge part of ending World War I because some people would die.
So they couldn't worry about participating in the war. Yeah. People have often thrown out numbers, but like I heard that the Iraq War had a 10-to-1 ratio. Starvation, access to medical care, and access to water versus bullets and explosives. Who's ever bullets and explosives? Ours, theirs, doesn't matter. Total bullets and explosives death times 10. Distribution issues. That's right, and then who knows how many people are starving or have fled or refugee camps are not counted. All right. Distribution problem is the biofuel thing, and the final distribution problem, food aid is not that simple. Everybody says, can't you just take like a SWAT team and one of those fancy helicopters with the parachute and the pallet and just drop pallets of food on hungry people?
Well, that's the long-term solution.
And you know, like, everybody has this visual. Like, when you say, how do we end world hunger? Everybody's like, oh, you know, helicopter, pallets, parachutes, bags of rice. And like, to a small degree, like, yeah, you can do a little of that. But all you're doing is just saying, here, hungry guy, please die tomorrow when I've left. It's like, I don't want you to die right now, so you wait till tomorrow, I'll be back home sunbathing in Miami, then you can die. You know, aid is expensive, complicated, and is a short-term band-aid that doesn't address the fundamental distribution issues in 1 through 4. I can't stress enough, starvation is not about food supply. Starvation is about socio-political economic issues. Okay. Number 4, I got nothing to add. I think your book did a fine job. I hope you took good notes. Number 5 gets 1 star. I got nothing to add. Your book does a good job unless you have questions. Number 6, get ready. I've got a bunch of different things for you to write down. 6 is associated with study goal 17. It's your job to remind me on Thursday the 8th, because you will answer much of number 6 in tomorrow's lab, and we'll discuss that on Wednesday. So remind me on Thursday the 8th to talk about number 6. Next, add the following words. Students, what is humus? No, not hummus, humus. Hummus is garbanzo beans with tahini, garlic, salt and pepper, lemon juice. Is that what that's in? You can put olives in there. I like hummus. But we're not talking hummus. You can see I said, no, not hummus. I'm saying humus, 1F.
Organic material and soil.
Right. And by organic material and soil, I mean like a broken up leaf or a broken up piece of tree, some plant fibers, whatever. Now, YouTube, bad people. This is good because it increases water retention. Remember that plants have little tubes? Plants are what we call vascularized tissues or vascular tissues. So plants have all these little microscopic straws, and when you chop those up, that's a bunch of little pockets where you can save water. So humus increases water retention and also supports nutrient cycling because of all that decomposition stuff. Yeah.
Is anything like non-vascular considered algae?
Well, algae is non-vascular, but not everything non-vascular is algae. That diagram? Non-vascular, algae. Plants are outside of both of those. One way that you can think about this, please look up, is you've got your consumers on top of your productivity, but all of that depends on humus. Here comes a news flash that usually shakes up my students. What happens if you take all the humus out of the dirt? What are you left with? You are left with desert, by definition. Definition is dirt minus humus. That's what the sand is. Little pieces of rock with no organic material. It's just sand, blows around, doesn't hold water very long, can't grow plants. You can literally turn a forest into a desert. You'll hear about it later in this unit. It's called desertification. And what you're doing is basically using up the organic content. The final thing about number 6, I need you to write this down. Start thinking of dirt as a living, breathing ecosystem. Dirt is a food web. Dirt has producers, consumers, decomposers, scavengers, predators, all microscopic. Then there's the bugs that you can actually see. Those are just a bigger food web also. If dirt goes in the microwave, you can't grow stuff in that dirt anymore. When you sterilize dirt, the dirt becomes less viable for life. Dirt has to be a living medium. And they hammer this home in the movie tonight, so I hope you'll see it. Number 7, I've got nothing to add. Number 8, what is bush fallow? Dang, dog. You're not choking because you can cough. Okay. Yeah. All right. Bush fallow is also known as cyclical slash and burn, or rotational slash and burn. Why do you have to cycle or rotate? Anybody know?